Hello, everybody. Welcome into Primetime Pregame. I'm Katie Mox, and woo, what a day it has been in the sports world. It was cut day in the NFL, Futures Day with FanDuel Sportsbook, and of course, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce announced their engagement. Good news is you can actually bet on all of this. So let's go ahead and get started. We are officially 9 days to kick off in the NFL. The countdown is on for the 2025 season. Getting ready to kick off next Thursday. We got storylines, rivalries, and plenty of drama ready to unfold. Football is almost back. And for more, let's welcome in our guy, Tyler Sullivan, to the show. Always good to see you, Sully. We're excited for the season to start, but it is not all roses. There are some big red flags heading into week one. So let's start with the AFC North. On one hand, you got the Bengals defense. They're thin up front, struggling to generate a pass rush and leaning on a lot of unproven pieces. On the other side, for the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers making his Pittsburgh debut behind a defensive line that still has major question marks. So what's the bigger concern in your eyes? Is it the Bengals defense or Rodgers trying to stay upright with the Steelers' protection issues?
Katie, it's crazy that I'm not going to say the biggest red flag is Aaron Rodgers, but I am, because the Cincinnati Bengals scare the heck out of me. As much as we can have questions about Aaron Rodgers transitioning to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the protection in front, the chemistry with his pass catchers, and all of that, and rightfully so, that should be a concern. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is something that I think is hindering what should be a Super Bowl window for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Right now, I still have massive questions as to how this defense is going to play in 2025, even with the kumbaya with Trey Hendrickson and everything like that. You bring in Shamar Stewart as the first-round pick. I still have zero idea and really zero confidence that this defense is going to show out. This preseason, when we did see the starters, they were not good. In the first drive against the Eagles, against the Eagles backups, they let up a touchdown. Against the Eagles backups again, they let up a field goal. You go to the Commanders starters, they let up a touchdown. The next drive against the backups, they let up a touchdown. They didn't play in the finale, but overall, they're letting up points every single drive, including into the red zone, into the end zone. So to me, it's the Bengals, because again, this is a team that should be in a Super Bowl window, has a top 5 quarterback in Joe Burrow, the number 1 wide receiver in Jamar Chase, but that could all come in vain because of this defense.
I'm sure our producer Mark is happy that you're more concerned with the Bengals than Aaron Rodgers, because he has a few jerseys that he's ready to wear this season for the Steelers. Moving on to the NFC North here, what is the bigger concern for you when you look at heading into the season? The Lions losing both coordinators who built their offense and their defense, or the Packers secondary trying to hold up without Jair Alexander and with unproven depth on the back end?
Yeah, I think something has to be said for the Detroit Lions losing their coordinators. Yes, they still have one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. Dan Campbell is still there at head coach, and prior history tells you that when a head coach loses both coordinators, that team still makes the playoffs in the following year. So there's precedent there that they'll be okay. But overall, in terms of what their ceiling should be, the Detroit Lions, in terms of being the number 1 seed, winning that division, going on to possibly win a Super Bowl, those losses have to count for something. So I'm kind of a little bit cautious about them. With the Green Bay Packers, yes, I'm concerned about the secondary. Of course, we saw them lose Jair Alexander this offseason. They parted ways with him due to injuries, and he's been inconsistent with them throughout his prior tenure. But overall, my number 1 concern with the Green Bay Packers is the quarterback position with Jordan Love. You can talk all about the secondary all you want, but to me, it all centers around Jordan Love. He has struggled out of the gate to begin seasons, and then has turned it on and has been unreal towards the back end of the year. The back end of the Packers schedule this year is a gauntlet, a ton of division rivals. You play the Baltimore Ravens, so not only does Jordan Love have to be bonkers on the back end, but he's got to not come out of the gate sluggish, because you see that there the first 2 weeks, the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders, even in that Week 4 game on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. But even talk about the secondary here as well. Look at all those elite quarterbacks, specifically down the stretch run. You're looking at Caleb Williams, you're talking about Jared Goff, you're talking about, let's see what happens with J.J. McCarthy, but Lamar Jackson down there as well. Bo Nix, we'll see how he transitions into year 2, but there's a lot of questions with the NFC North. I lean towards the Detroit Lions and their coordinators as more concerning, but overall the Packers have questions as well.
Yeah, our own Pete Prisco was watching HQ earlier today, and he likes the Packers to go all the way to the Super Bowl for the NFC, but I'm with you. There's a lot of question marks there. Now let's go to your division, the AFC East. For the Patriots, it's all about wide receiver depth. You got Stephon Diggs as the clear #1, but behind him it's just kind of unproven guys and injuries. For the Dolphins, the issue is always going to be the O-line. They're thin at depth, especially at tackle, and that's a real concern at protecting Tua. So, Sully, bigger concern here, Patriots wide receivers or the Dolphins O-line?
To me, it's probably the Dolphins' offensive line because, again, you're losing Teron Armstead this offseason. We'll see how the offensive line translates with Patrick Paul coming in, their former second-round pick. It seems like he's had a pretty strong summer, pretty strong preseason to go along with training camp. So if he is able to hold things up at left tackle, then that really does stabilize things, but certainly not a guarantee. And when you have a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa, who at any given moment could miss time, that's concerning. You should have a pretty solidified offensive line for someone especially like Tua Tagovailoa, because things can dissolve really quickly with this Miami Dolphins team. I'm kind of fading them this season. I don't think that they're going to be particularly good. But then you look at the New England Patriots. They have 8 wide receivers now on their opening roster as we've come back to cutdown day. And it's kind of that old saying, if you have a lot of quarterbacks, then you have none. I kind of feel like if you have a lot of wide receivers for the New England Patriots, you have none. Stephon Diggs, certainly a name, but he's coming off a torn ACL. So a lot of questions there as well for Drake May and his pass catchers.
Yeah, there's one thing about the Dolphins. Hammer them in the first part of the season and fade them in the second part of the season. That's something I've learned over the last couple of years. Moving on to the NFC South here for the Bucs, the concern is at wide receiver. Mike Evans, he's still elite, but he's aging, he's injury prone, so depth and durability are major questions over there. And then looking at the Falcons, it's all about the pass rush. Sully, they've struggled to generate consistent pressure for years, and there's still doubts at who can truly disrupt a quarterback. Are you more concerned about the Bucs' wideout durability and their depth, or the Falcons' ability to rush the passer?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the Buccaneers. Mike Evans, as you said, yes, of course, there's injury concerns. Same thing with Chris Godwin when he comes back. He's still dealing with injuries, but he's not going to begin the year on the PUP list, so that's an encouraging sign. They drafted Emeka Egbuka in the first round, who's by all accounts been like a superstar this summer, a star in your fantasy football draft. So I'm not concerned about them. I feel like they'll be able to figure it out. I am concerned, or at least have a lot of questions with the Atlanta Falcons and their pass rush. They double-dipped in the first round of the NFL draft to bring in Jalen Walker and James Pierce out of Tennessee. But this was a team that was at the bottom of the NFL in terms of sacks. You can see it here. Pressure rate, bottom third pretty much across the board outside of hurries. But to me, you need both of these guys to really hit. As you transition now to Michael Penix being the starting quarterback, you're in this new era. If you want to contend in year one with Michael Penix, you need at least one of these guys, preferably both, to hit. So far, kind of a muted summer, muted preseason for both of them. Haven't really done much, so you'd like to see those guys come out of the gate hot to really help that pass rush go into the upper echelons of the league.
All right, Sully, one last thing. Let's talk about some quarterback concerns here. For the Saints, the QB room is young and unproven. They have one of the least experienced quarterback situations in the entire league. And then on the Browns, there's at least experience and some stability, but it's still not great. So are you more concerned with the youth and the inexperience of the Saints quarterback room, or just the inconsistency of the Browns quarterback room?
So I'll split it like this. I am more concerned with the New Orleans Saints in 2025 because I think they're going to be awful, and I don't think their quarterback situation is going to help them. You know, Spencer Rattler won the starting quarterback job. That doesn't really instill a ton of confidence, but I think they're going to be bad. So in theory, you're going to get a high draft pick, and you're going to be fine at quarterback beyond 2025. The Cleveland Browns, Joe Flacco, yes, he's older. That dude's liable to win a couple of games. He just is. He's somehow going to throw for like 300 yards, 2 interceptions, but also 4 touchdowns in a game. Like, we're going to get a Joe Flacco moment. And so I wonder if that's ultimately going to feel good in the moment for the Cleveland Browns, but ultimately hurt them down the line as they try to find a more stable future quarterback. Yes, you have Dylan Gabriel. You have Shedeur Sanders that made the 53-man roster. Dylan Gabriel is going to be your QB2. Showed out a little bit in that preseason finale, but I don't know if he's a slam dunk guy that you're going going to build around for the foreseeable future. So not necessarily concerned with the Cleveland Browns now. They'll be able to try those guys out. Maybe Joe Flacco does Joe Flacco things in 2025. And if so, that might not be the best thing for them in 2026.
Joe Flacco does things for about 5 games tops, and then it goes the other way. You will be able to see Spencer Rattler making his first start on September 7th right here on CBS. Appreciate you, as always, Tyler, for stopping by and dropping the news. Football is back on CBS Sports HQ, and on CBS you can count on Sundays. Again, it returns September 7th. Watch your local game live or streaming on Paramount+.